99.9 WEFM.
Activated Mornings on WeFM 99.9 is on now.
The time is now 9:22 here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and welcome back to WeFM's Activated Mornings this morning. This is our Talk to Me segment, the open forum that we usually have around 9:20. The number to call is 457-9997. Also, the number to WhatsApp 457-9997. You want to talk about it? Call in, let us know. We'll discuss it. In the meanwhile, Roleza actually suggested something for the Talk to Me this morning, Roleza.
All right. So now it would have been like 3 Sundays ago on WEFM'S It's Your Turn program. Minister Benava Brown was on radio, and there's an article on the WEFM'S website titled "Green Spaces to be Reestablished in Kingstown." Right? It's a short article, so I could read the entire thing. All right. So the Minister of Agriculture will work in collaboration with the Ministry of Urban Development to reestablish green spaces in capital city Kingstown. Minister of Urban Development Benava Brown, speaking on WEFM'S It's Your Turn program, said that the re-establishment of green spaces and the planting of trees is one of the surest ways of combating the harsh effects of increased heat. Generally, this is quoting from her, generally the establishment of green spaces and the planting of trees is one of the surest ways to deal with the heat island effect or the impacts of heat. It is part of the budget. There is allocation for the development of open spaces and the redevelopment of green spaces in town or areas that had trees, where because of the uses of automobiles and other human interventions, they have been degraded. So we are going to be looking at reestablishing these and adding some green in Kingstown. This would be in collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry to guide us in terms of the selection of plants and trees to use within the urban areas. The Urban Development Minister said, right? Minister Brown said that consulting with the Ministry of Agriculture will ensure the trees planted in Kingstown will be suitable for urban setting. All right. So that was part of what was discussed on the WEFM program, It's Your Turn, when Minister Brown was on air, right? Apart from talking about the reestablishment of trees, there was a general discussion on different subject areas, and one of it touched on the development of Kingstown. And before we get into it, the question that I'm posing to you, our listeners, if you could see the implementation of certain things within Kingstown itself, what would those suggestions be? All right. So as we said, Kingstown is supposed to undergo some redevelopment to make it a bit more attractive, I suppose. Maybe in some ways to decentralize certain things. So the question that's being posed to you, our listeners, is what would you like to see in terms of a redevelopment for capital Kingstown, right? I could begin. So apart from having the green spaces, I think one of the things that bothers me a lot when I go into Kingstown is that there isn't a particular place where we can necessarily hang out. Or if we're trying to kill time, let's say you have an appointment or you're to meet with someone and it's delayed out for whatever reason, you have to find time to kill in Kingstown, quote unquote kill. We don't have a space where we can go to, right? Some persons end up having to go to offices of their family and friends to wait around. There isn't like a park type setting where we can just go to hang out to be able to kill time. I remember the other day I was buying food and a lady she was on vacation. She works in Vincy, but she was saying that she needs to eat something, and she doesn't even have somewhere where she can actually go and sit and eat, So I think this is one of the things that that we can address or should be addressed, a generalized, centralized area. In the topic that Ari and Crystal was speaking about yesterday, in terms of students or people hanging out at Massey, both Massey parking lots, we tend to find that students or children or people congregate in those areas simply because there aren't many places in town for persons to do such. You know, persons may just be hanging out or just want to hang out. We always have to ask the question, where do young people actually get to hang out in a safe and social setting? Unfortunately, it has turned into massive car parks being that place of venue simply because there aren't enough spaces within Kingstown, right? That's my opinion there. Um, in terms of the redevelopment, what I would love to see, and I'm emphasizing that love, is every time we see a car boat coming in, I am happy that somebody is getting probably the vehicle of their dreams that they've been waiting for the longest while. But one of the problems that we seriously have an issue with is the lack of parking in Kingstown, right? The powers that may be, whether it's government or somebody within the private sector, we need to be able to have at least a high-rise car park somewhere within Kingstown, right? Vendors fighting for parking spaces sell things. Now, yes, I know that persons are not supposed to be selling on the streets, but we cannot act like it is not happening. All right. So we have vendors who are fighting for parking, utilizing some of these parking spaces. In some cases, we see that the town is congested already with too many vehicles. And there are certain periods of times within the year when it's carnival, whether it's Christmas, even end of month, we find it a challenge, those of us who drive coming into Kingstown proper, because of the fact that it's just so congested. The roads are small, the roads are narrow. It doesn't accommodate a lot of the vehicles that are coming into the country, and especially when you have to do business in Kingstown, it's tedious. It's time consuming, right? So we need to have I would like to at least see a high-rise car park, right? I think also, as we're talking about traffic within Kingstown itself and the congestion, what I would probably suggest, if there are decentralized places, let's say within at the Annisville area, where persons, instead of bringing their vehicles into Kingstown, that there's a shuttle service, right? Now, what it is that I tend to do when I know that the place is going to be congested, I tend to park at the Anglican car park. And if I know that I have to go up the road to clear an item, or I would have load, as Ben Sanchez would say, we have load. If I have load, then I would utilize the services of, let's say, Wrongtown Taxi, because it's easier for them to maneuver through the streets of Kingstown, rather than me having to stop in front of a business place, hold up traffic, because some of these business places don't have the facility for you to pull over and to park in. So sometimes we also have to, as drivers, we also have to think of ways in which we can help to ease the congestion within town. Either have let's say a shuttle service, let's say from Annisville, and a shuttle service operates between Annisville and Kingstown. Or let's say if you know that you have a particular designated parking space, utilize the services of, let's say, Wrongtown Taxi to be able to get you through the traffic a little bit quicker. And in that sense, you're also carpooling, because they'll be picking up persons along the way as well. So those are the three main things that I suppose that I would like to see in terms of redevelopment, both in terms of like infrastructure, as well as even ourselves in terms of what we can do as drivers to help to alleviate some of the congestion. Ari, any thoughts?
I feel like it's kind of dated for us to be wanting high-rise car parks and more space taken up for parking in Kingstown. I do feel like car parks like the one next to the one opposite the Central Police Station, I forget the name.
Solidarity car park.
Solidarity, and the one at Korea's car park. I do think like those car parks have been there since the beginning of time, and they're kind of necessary. But any other car parks being put in place there, I think it's just taking up space. What they do in Taiwan that I strongly feel like should be implemented here is most of the car parks are underground, whereas wherever a building is, wherever a business is, where even schools, their car parks sometimes go 3 floors underground. See, like how Massey Stony Ground has their car park and people barely utilize it. Something similar to that.
And Bank of St. Vincent actually has an underground car park as well.
Yeah, but that's for Bank
Right.
of
Yeah.
St. Vincent Walkers,
Yeah,
and
but
it's really small.
and it still alleviates them having to find alternative parking. So yeah.
By how much? It's really small. It's really small. But if those are introduced, I really do think that it would ease up congestion. I really do think that is a good way to manage this space in Kingston, because Kingston is very small. But that is just parking. Answered here on WhatsApp, which I think is a very good point. Look at the bus terminal vendors that are applying their trade, and people can't get to sit down and wait for their bus. Well, someone else said, I don't know how we still have open drains in Kingston. It is so unsanitary. That needs to be done and upgrade the drainage system. I do think it's highly unsanitary. The look of it, we could see the I don't know if they call them cats, dogs, or rats, whatever those creatures are. We could see them. The scent that usually comes up hits you, depending on where you are in Kingston, hits you right in the face. And then there's toddlers or even grown adults being put in danger if they trip, or maybe they could fall into these gutters. Persons could lose items to these gutters, because who knows what chemicals come in together in those gutters you don't want to put your hands in to retrieve whatever it is was lost. As it relates to the bus terminal vendors, definitely something needs to be done about that, because in Leeward bus stop there isn't that problem per se. At the Wynwood bus terminal, the main bus terminal, the Little Tokyo, there's so many vendors and shops and people liming that when you go there to take a van, you're almost always in the hot sun waiting for the van. Those spaces were designated for persons to stand in the shade, or at least have some level of comfort while they await public transportation. Now it is vendors, strictly vendors, all lined across that area there in Little Tokyo. I really do think something should be done about that, especially now with the port coming kind of across that area.
As you're speaking there about the drains as well, I would love to see the implementation of more bins in Kingstown, right? More facilities to be able to dispose of your garbage, because many times, when I'm walking through town and I have something in my hand, because I can't find a bin, I have to put it in my bag or whatever. Now, that's not necessarily an issue, but at least it would help to be able to alleviate persons. We know dumping is not right, but we know that we have seen persons who would just walk and dump things along the way. So even the facilitation or even having more bins placed in Kingstown is something that I would like to see happening.
Where do you suggest bins go?
Planting in different areas within town.
I feel like there are a lot of bins in Kingstown.
Okay, well, we would have a difference of opinion here, but I find that you have to walk a distance still between both of them, not both of them, between where they're placed. So for me, I don't find that there are adequate amongst the bins.
I know the name of that street.
I know that one of the challenges that has always been stated, and I saw it even up to yesterday, is that homeless persons who live on the streets, that they tend to go into the bins a lot. I don't know if there's a means or mechanism by which they can be locked. Maybe it's a way in which the garbage can be dumped into it without necessarily a hand being able to go into the bin, etc. Maybe to find a way around it. But I don't find that there are sufficient bins placed within Kingstown.
Trying to follow that road for Anglican Methodists coming up from Games. I remember there's a bin around Games. I think there's a bin around the gas station there. There's another bin closer to the courthouse. There's a bin right next to the courthouse. There's a bin where Bank of SVG used to be. There's a bin closer to Heritage Square. And that's off the top of my head, going on that one street. But then again, I don't frequently walk around town, so who knows? I could be wrong. How about when a van driver and passenger like threw their garbage out the window?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And one of the other things too, I don't know if this is ever, if it's going to be addressed. Simply because of the fact what Kingstown is named. Kingstown is the city of arches and cobblestone. But I know that for us as ladies, it's sometimes very challenging to walk on the cobblestones, especially when they are wet, right? Many of us tend to slip based on the type of shoe that we have, and you could even have on a slip up, doesn't even have to be heels in this case, but I know that, and in saying all of this, I recognize the beauty of Kingstown more so when it's empty, right? Walking along cobblestone area, even what's that upper area called? That alley, I think, at the back of where KCCU is, etc. Anyway, so I recognize the beauty of Kingston. I see the beauty of Kingston when it is empty, but I know that persons have commented on the cobblestones over the years. But given the name that we have attached to Kingstown, I don't know if this is going to be addressed, but it's always been a bit of a challenge for us as ladies walking through Kingstown, especially when it is wet, because of the smoothness of some of these cobblestones. Is there anything that you saw, let's say, in your visits to Taiwan, etc., that you think can be implemented here in Kingston, given
multiple things, multiple things? But relating to the cobblestone, I do think that for way too long, the cobblestones in Kingstown have been uneven. There have been some missing, there have been some raising up. There's some that you step in and there's water underneath that mess up the other foot depending on how you're walking. Usually, if you're in a slipper or a sandal or a shoe that doesn't have that much traction during the rain, it is quite difficult to walk. And I really do think that some sort of beautification or modification should be done to the current cobblestone, that same street behind KCCU. Walking through there, very, very uneven. Driving through there, very strange. That entire middle street needs, that entire middle street needs a touch up. And with the influx of tourists that we are expecting, I kind of expected the city, at least Kingstown, to look a lot better than it currently looks.
I know that someone posted a photo recently. One of those news sites posted a photo recently, and it was showing the parking that's on Bay Street. And, I don't know if it's because it looks like it may have been one of those rainy days, but, it did not look like an inviting type of photo to me. It wasn't a photo that I would have been happy to reshare, saying that this is my city, this is Kingstown, because it just looks so gloomy. It wasn't one of those attractive type photos, and then even so, when you look at it from an aerial standpoint, I would like to as well say that this is going to be expensive. It's going to be costly, but some of the upkeep of some of the buildings as well, because we tend to find that some of these buildings, paint wash out, paint stripping. Now I know, yes, of course, I'm saying all of this, and I can't speak to the pockets of or the bank accounts for the owners of these buildings, but even in simple ways as just repainting a building adds to the beautification of the city as well.
You know what I really, really, really would like something to be done about? Massey Stony Ground. I can't speak for Annisville because I don't know what it's like there on an afternoon, especially a Friday afternoon. But it is very annoying the way these van drivers pull off in Massey and the way that they pull out. And it's usually quite reckless. It's inconvenient the way that they're there. They want to take up all sides of the road. They want to pull out crazy in front of you. They believe that the road belongs to them. Both the main road and the strip for Massey Supermarket belongs to them. And I really wish they would have somewhere designated for the van drivers to pull aside, or at least one way for van drivers to go in and regular drivers to go in, because it is quite annoying to when you're actually going to the supermarket, or if you're going to Terrence, or if you're going to any of the other businesses in the area, going up in that parking lot at massive Stony Grove. These van drivers make it very difficult for you as and I'm pretty sure as a pedestrian too. It is quite frustrating with what is currently happening in that specific area in Kingstown.
Yeah, I think even sometimes reversing, because you started reversing, you're looking off pedestrians, but a van suddenly swings, and you have to be conscious, you have to be mindful of all of this, especially coming out of the Massey area. All right. Anything else you want to add? No? All right. So that's just us lending our opinions in terms of some of the things that we would like to see in terms of the redevelopment of capital city Kingstown. And I would like to hope that maybe there might be maybe a consultation on this from community groups who may have an interest in it, who have ideas that they wish to express in terms of how to go about it. But Kingstown is quite congested, both with pedestrians and vehicles, and it's just to find little ways to beautify it. As I said, we have to utilize Kingstown, and not just for business, but it could also be utilized for recreational activities, which is probably just linemen, So having that mix within the city area would be lovely. All right. So at this time, we are going to bring to you Community Dateline.